Alaska is the ultimate postcard. You step off the plane in Anchorage, or you pull your vehicle over on the shoulder of the Seward Highway to look out over the Turnagain Arm. The air is so crisp it almost burns your lungs. You look at the jagged white peaks of the Chugach Mountains rising straight out of the ocean, the deep, endless green of the Spruce Valleys, and you feel a profound sense of awe. There is a stillness here, a quiet, ancient softness that makes you let your guard down. You take a deep breath. You walk down a gravel trail in your fleece jacket. You listen to the wind, and you do not think, not once, about what is holding perfectly still in the brush just 50 yards away. It is the safest you have ever felt, and almost nothing living in this landscape has ever agreed to that arrangement. Most lists of dangerous animals send you to the Amazon, or the Australian outback, or the deep swamps of the south. This one does not move an inch out of the freezing north. We are ranking 12 animals by two things at once. First, by how rapidly they can end a human life if an encounter goes wrong. And second, by how completely you would fail to notice them, or how deeply you misunderstand what they are looking at when they look at you. Weighted by real numbers logged by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, the National Park Service, and state health departments. And here is the shape of it. We start with the animals you think are too small or too clumsy to be a threat. We move through the heavyweights of the land and the freezing water. And we end with something you cannot spot from your cabin window, something that has probably already been on your skin. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand exactly why the quietest animal in the state is the one nobody admits they should be looking for. If you have a trip planned to the last frontier, or if you just like the kind of thing that makes you look twice at country you thought you knew, go ahead and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it helps the channel. And tell me one thing. Which part of the wilderness are you watching from right now? Drop your town or your state in the comments. I read them. Now the countdown. Number 12. The Wolverine. You would not look at an animal that tops out at 40 pounds and think of it as a lethal threat. People see the name and they think of comic books or myths, or they mistake it for a badger or a small bear cub scurrying over the rocks in Denali National Park. That is a mistake. The wolverine, known to science as gulo gulo, which translates literally to glutton, is not a scavenger scurrying away from danger. It is 30 to 40 pounds of concentrated, untamed fury. A wolverine has a jaw structure and musculature so dense it is designed to shatter frozen bones. They have been documented driving adult grizzly bears away from carcasses. They roam massive territories across the Brooks Range and the interior tundra, surviving the most brutal winter conditions on Earth by being absolutely fearless. If you are backcountry skiing or snowshoeing and you accidentally corner a wolverine in a rock crevice or near a kill site, it does not bluff charge. It does not posture. It launches. People assure themselves that a small mammal will always run from a human. They trust that size equals dominance. But the wolverine does not know it is small, and it does not care that you are tall. A bite from a wolverine will sever tendons and crush bone in a fraction of a second, leaving you bleeding heavily in sub-zero temperatures hours away from help. Number 12 is the reminder that in the cold, pure aggression matters much more than size. Number 11. The Arctic Fox. If the wolverine is pure aggression, the next animal hides its danger behind an almost irresistible charm. Everyone who visits the northern coast, up near Prudhoe Bay or Utqiagvik, wants to see an Arctic fox. In their winter coat, they are pure white, fluffy, and impossibly cute. They look like a domesticated pet that has wandered out onto the tundra, and that is exactly what makes them so incredibly dangerous. The Arctic fox is one of the primary vectors for the rabies virus in the state of Alaska. In the harsh environment of the North Slope, resources are scarce, and an infected fox does not always act like a foaming, snarling monster. Often, the virus simply strips away their natural fear of humans. The fox approaches a group of tourists or pipeline workers. It looks curious. It looks hungry. It trots right up to a gloved hand offering a piece of food. Here is the denial. People cannot process that something so beautiful and small could kill them. They reach out. The bite is fast, sharp, and seemingly minor, a puncture through a glove. But rabies is a neurotropic virus. Once that saliva enters your bloodstream and begins the slow crawl toward your central nervous system, a clock starts ticking. If you are hundreds of miles from a clinic carrying post-exposure prophylaxis and the virus takes hold, the mortality rate is 100%. Number 11 is the disease wrapped in a postcard. Number 10. The stellar sea lion. We move from the frozen tundra down to the deep, emerald green waters of the Gulf of Alaska and Kachemak Bay. When people book sea kayaking tours or charter fishing boats, They are told to watch out for whales. They see a sea lion swimming nearby, popping its head up, and they think of marine parks. They think of playful seals balancing balls on their noses. They do not realize they are looking at a predator the size of a minivan. An adult male Steller sea lion can weigh 2,500 pounds and measure 11 feet long. They are incredibly territorial, surprisingly aggressive, and they possess bite force meant to crush the spines of large fish and tear through flesh. In the waters around Kodiak and the Aleutian Islands, there are documented cases of Steller sea lions aggressively charging commercial fishing boats, ripping salmon straight out of the nets, and even grabbing fishermen and pulling them underwater. When you are sitting in a thin fiberglass kayak, you are at eye level with the water. You are completely vulnerable. People paddle right up to sea lion rookeries, pointing their cameras, ignoring the deep, guttural roaring echoing off the rocks. They assume marine mammals are universally friendly to humans, but a Steller sea lion that feels its space is violated will surge from beneath the surface, easily capable of capsizing a kayak and dragging a person under. In water that is 38 degrees, you do not have to be bitten to die. You just have to be put in the water. Number 10 owns the ocean, and it will gladly drown you to prove it. Number 9, the wood bison. Now we step back onto land, into the deep interior of the state. If you are out near the Innoko River or the Yukon Flats, you might see a dark, massive shape moving through the snow or the summer brush. The wood bison is a success story of wildlife reintroduction. They were brought back from the edge of extinction and are now thriving in the Alaskan wilderness. But because they eat grass and look like cattle, human beings make a fatal miscalculation. A mature wood bison bull weighs over 2,000 pounds. It is the largest land mammal in North America, heavier even than the coastal brown bears. They are built with a massive hump of pure muscle over their shoulders, designed to plow through deep snowdrifts. Despite their prehistoric size, they are not slow. A wood bison can pivot on a dime and accelerate to 35 miles per hour in just a few strides. People look at them and see a slow, grazing cow. They walk off the trail. They step out of their vehicles. They walk closer to get a photograph of this majestic symbol of the wild. They ignore the swishing tail. They ignore the lowered head. When a bison decides you have crossed the invisible line of its personal space, there is no warning roar. There is just a sudden, explosive charge. 2,000 pounds of bone and horn hitting you at the speed of a car on a residential street. It shatters the human body instantly. Number 9 is a freight train wearing a fur coat. Number 8, the walrus. If the bison is the heavy tank of the land, the walrus holds that title on the sea ice. Along the shores of the Chukchi and Bering Seas, massive herds of walruses haul out onto the ice floes. From a distance, they look like giant sluggish boulders shifting lazily in the sun. They look comical, but that is an illusion born of seeing them out of their element. An adult male Pacific walrus weighs up to 4,000 pounds. They carry ivory tusks that can grow to 3 feet in length. When they are on the ice, they are vulnerable and clumsy, but when they slip into the water, they become agile, highly aware, and violently protective of their space and their calves. Indigenous hunters in small skiffs have known for thousands of years that a walrus in the water is one of the most dangerous things on Earth. Modern tourists and amateur boaters often do not share this respect. They assume the walrus is just a blubbery, slow-moving creature. They pilot small boats or kayaks too close to the ice edge. A walrus defending its territory does not hesitate. It will dive, swim beneath the boat, and use its massive tusks to puncture the hull or flip the vessel entirely. If a 3-foot ivory tusk pierces a small boat in the Arctic Ocean, the boat sinks in minutes, and the freezing water does the rest. Number 8 is the undisputed king of the ice edge, and it does not tolerate trespassers. We are at the halfway point, and if you are still with me, you are clearly someone who actually wants to know what is out there. You do not just want the glossy brochure version of the wild, you want the reality. So this is the perfect moment to subscribe, because the animals from here to the top of the list are the ones people flat out refuse to believe are as dangerous as the statistics prove. Number 7, the orca. We stay in the water for this one because we have to talk about the intelligence operating just below the surface. In places like Prince William Sound, Kenai Fjords, or Resurrection Bay, seeing the tall, black dorsal fin of a killer whale cutting through the water is the highlight of any trip. We have been conditioned by decades of aquarium shows and movies to view orcas as the gentle giants of the sea, benevolent guardians of the deep. But the orca is the absolute apex predator of the global ocean. In Alaska, transient pods hunt marine mammals with a level of tactical coordination that borders on military strategy. They weigh up to 12,000 pounds. They can swim over 30 miles per hour. They communicate flawlessly, working together to create massive waves that wash seals off ice floes or ramming large whales to drown them. The denial here is profound. We tell ourselves that orcas do not hunt humans in the wild. And it is true that documented fatal attacks on humans by wild orcas are virtually non-existent. But that is exactly what makes an encounter so terrifying. When a pod of transient orcas surrounds your 20-foot skiff or your 12-foot kayak, swimming beneath you, turning on their sides to look up at you with one massive eye, you realize something chilling. You are not safe because you are out of their league. You are safe entirely because they have made a conscious choice not to flip your boat. If they wanted to, it would take 3 seconds. And in the Gulf of Alaska, surviving the capsize means fighting water so cold your muscles fail in under 5 minutes. Number 7 is the apex of the ocean, deciding, for now, to let you live. Now the animals begin to genuinely surprise people, because we move from the freezing water back into the deep timber to the predators that hunt where we walk. Number 6, the gray wolf. There is a romanticized idea of the wolf in the modern mind. We listen to their howls echoing across the valleys of Denali or the deep rainforests of the Alexander Archipelago in southeast Alaska, and we feel a spiritual connection. Biologists and guides will tell you that wolves are inherently shy, that they fear humans, and that they will almost always run the other way as soon as they catch your scent. All of that is statistically true, but a wolf is still a 120-pound pack-hunting carnivore with a bite force of 1,500 pounds per square inch. They are designed to run down and dismember moose and caribou that weigh 10 times what a human does. And in the vast, remote stretches of Alaska, where animals have rarely seen humans, that innate fear is sometimes replaced by a cold, calculating curiosity. When people hike the backcountry, they make noise to scare off bears. They do not realize that a pack of wolves might simply be pacing them just out of sight, analyzing their gait, looking for weakness. Fatal wolf attacks in North America are incredibly rare, but they have happened, specifically in Alaska. In 2010, a teacher jogging on a remote road near Chignik Lake was surrounded and killed by a pack of wolves. There was no provocation. It was a purely predatory event. They do not roar. They do not snap branches. They simply appear from the brush, cutting off your escape. Number 6 is the shadow at the edge of the tree line that suddenly decides you are prey. Number 5, the black bear. If you ask anyone in Alaska what kind of bear you should be afraid of, they will all say the grizzly. The black bear is treated almost as a nuisance. They raid garbage cans in Anchorage. They hang around cabins on the Kenai Peninsula. People yell at them, bang pots and pans, and watch the bear scurry away into the woods. We have labeled them the cowardly bear. But here is the terrifying truth hidden in the statistics. When a grizzly bear attacks a human, it is almost always defensive. It is a mother protecting cubs, or a bear defending a carcass, or a surprise encounter, the grizzly neutralizing a threat. But when a black bear attacks a human, it is almost never defensive. It is predatory. A 300-pound black bear that has decided to hunt a human being does not make a sound. It does not huff. It does not pop its jaws. It does not bluff charge. It quietly stalks you through the dense alder thickets. It follows your path. People who are stalked by black bears often report a strange, sudden silence in the woods, or the feeling of being watched just before the bear silently rushes them from behind. The denial is that people think they should play dead with any bear. If you play dead with a black bear that is actively hunting you, you are just making its job easier. Number 5 is the bear that does not want your food, it wants you. Number 4, the polar bear. We travel back to the extreme northern edge of the continent, the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik, Kaktovik. To understand the polar bear, you have to understand its world. It lives on the sea ice, a blinding white desert of frozen salt water where the wind chill drops to 60 below zero. In this environment, there are no berries, there is no salmon stream, there is only ice, water, and meat. The polar bear is the largest terrestrial carnivore on the planet. A mature male can weigh 1,500 pounds and stand 10 feet tall on its hind legs. They can smell a seal beneath 3 feet of solid ice from a mile away. But what makes the polar bear uniquely terrifying is its psychological relationship with human beings. Unlike the black bear or the grizzly, which evolved alongside humans and learned a healthy caution, the polar bear evolved in a world completely devoid of us. To a polar bear, human beings are not a dominant species. We are not a threat. We are simply slow-moving, relatively defenseless packages of calories walking across their ice. There is no denial to unpack here, because the reality is absolute. If a polar bear sees you out on the ice, and it is hungry, it will systematically track you, close the distance, and kill you. You cannot outrun it. You cannot fight it. Number 4 is the ghost of the ice, and the only animal on this list that views you purely as food from the moment it sees you. Number 3, the grizzly bear. This is the symbol of Alaska, the coastal brown bear and the interior grizzly. From the massive, salmon-fed giants of Kodiak Island to the lean, aggressive foragers of the Brooks Range. Everyone who comes to Alaska knows about the grizzly. They carry bear spray. They wear bells on their backpacks. They think they are prepared. A grizzly bear can weigh 1,000 pounds. It has claws the length of human fingers. It can run 35 miles per hour through dense brush, meaning it can cover the length of a football field in under 6 seconds. What makes the grizzly so incredibly dangerous is the sheer explosiveness of a defensive encounter. You are hiking a trail in Chugach State Park. The wind is blowing your scent away from the thicket ahead. The sound of the river masks your footsteps. You round a blind corner, and you are suddenly 30 feet from a mother grizzly and her 2 cubs. The bear does not have time to assess if you are a harmless hiker or a lethal threat. Her genetics dictate one response: neutralize the threat immediately and with overwhelming violence. The denial is the belief that pepper spray or a firearm guarantees your safety. In the 3 seconds it takes a grizzly to cross that 30 feet, most people never even get their hand on the canister. The sheer blunt force trauma of the impact alone can break your neck. Number 3 is the raw, untamed violence of the frontier, triggered in the blink of an eye. And that leaves just 2. Number 2 is the animal that has violently altered more human lives in this state than any predator. And number 1 is the thing I warned you about at the very start, the one you might have already carried inside your tent. Number 2, the moose. If you tell someone outside of Alaska that you are terrified of moose, they might laugh. They picture the cartoon characters. They picture a large, goofy deer eating twigs in a swamp. But ask any resident of Anchorage or Fairbanks, and they will tell you the cold, hard truth. Moose injure more people in Alaska than bears and wolves combined. An adult bull moose stands 6 to 7 feet tall at the shoulder. It weighs up to 1,500 pounds. They carry antlers that can span 6 feet across. But it is not just the bulls you have to fear. A cow moose protecting her calf in the spring is one of the most hair-trigger, volatile animals on the continent. They do not live deep in the inaccessible wilderness. They live exactly where people do. They stand in driveways. They block the sidewalks in front of grocery stores. They bed down in your snowy backyard. People step out of their cars to take a selfie. They walk their dogs too close. They assume that because it is an herbivore, it is peaceful. But a moose does not have to bite you to kill you. When a moose feels threatened, it pins its long ears flat against its head. The hair on its hump stands up, and it lunges. It attacks with its front hooves, striking downward with incredible speed and force. Those hooves are heavy, sharp, and driven by a ton of muscle. They will easily crush a human skull or cave in a rib cage in a matter of seconds. They stomp until the threat stops moving. Number 2 does not want to eat you. It just wants you erased from its space. Number 1, the Alaskan yellowjacket. And so we arrive at number 1. It is not the grizzly. It is not the massive polar bear. It is an insect, specifically Vespula alicensis, a species of yellowjacket native to the far north. Remember the promise at the beginning of this list? That the most dangerous thing is the one you completely fail to recognize until it is already happening. Alaska's summers are short, frantic, and warm. In July and August, massive colonies of these wasps build their nests in the ground, hidden under rotting logs or tucked into the moss just inches off the hiking trail. You are out in the deep backcountry, maybe 100 miles from the nearest hospital or paved road. You have your heavy gear, your boots, your layers of clothing. You sit down on a log to rest, or you walk through a patch of dense brush, and you disturb a nest. They do not just sting once, they swarm, and they crawl. They get under the cuffs of your pants, they crawl into the folds of your jacket. You hike back to your camp, unzip your tent, and you bring them inside with you, completely unaware. Here is why this is the top of the list. A bear might maul you, a moose might stomp you. But statistically, severe anaphylactic shock from insect venom sends more people into critical medical emergencies in the wild than large predators. If you are allergic, and many people do not know they are until the second or third time they are stung in their lives, the reaction begins in minutes. Your throat swells, your blood pressure drops, your airway closes. You are in one of the most remote, rugged landscapes on Earth, and you cannot breathe. There is no helicopter coming fast enough. People scan the tree line for bears with binoculars, clutching their rifles, completely ignoring the tiny, vibrating hum in the grass at their feet. Number 1 is the killer you invited inside your own clothes. So here is what this list is really about. It is not about fear. It is not about keeping you out of the woods or convincing you that Alaska is an evil place. It is about the quiet, unspoken agreement that lets humans pave roads and build cabins in the middle of an intact, functioning food chain. The wolverine is still out there on the frozen ridges. The polar bear is still moving silently across the dark ice. The grizzly is still waiting in the alder thickets, and the moose is still standing quietly in the snow by your driveway. The mountains look like a painting. The rivers sound like a meditation track. The air feels pure and clean. But this landscape was never really tame. It just lets you believe it is. The softness is a camouflage for an ecosystem that operates with absolute, brutal efficiency. The danger here is not that the animals are malicious. The danger is that they are perfect at what they do, and you are standing in their living room, pretending it is a museum. You were never alone out here. You just thought you were. If this changed the way you will look at the tree line the next time you step off the pavement, subscribe and stay for the next one. And the next time it feels a little too quiet out there on the trail, remember why.